Chapter 4. The Promised Land. Clermont, November 1095. The crowd swayed like a sea before a storm. The dusty square of Clermont was crammed with thousands, peasants, craftsmen, knights, priests. They had gathered as if summoned by fate itself. The clatter of armor, the murmur of prayers, the shouts of merchants merged into a single roar. But the moment Pope Urban stepped onto the platform, the square fell silent. Richard stood in the shadow of a column, watching the people. His dark eyes slid across the faces, excited, hungry for a miracle. In some he saw fanatical faith, in others greed, in others still fear. A crowd was always a living thing, but today it seemed more like a beast, waiting for its master. The Pope slowly raised his hands. Beams of autumn sunlight broke through the haze, catching on his crimson vestments. Urban paused, sweeping his gaze over the masses, stretching the silence as if drawing the string of a bow. "People of the Franks," his voice cut the air like a sword, "God has chosen you. God has loved you. He has armed you with strength to punish the wicked, and now the time has come to rise." The crowd held its breath. "Listen." Urban raised a parchment, though he only pretended to read. The words were branded into his mind with fire. "Envoys from Constantinople have brought dreadful news. The land of our Lord is defiled. The ungodly Turks, the Saracens, the spawn of the devil, trample Jerusalem underfoot. They desecrate the churches, they ravish women, they slay children, they profane the Holy Sepulchre. They sacrifice Christian infants. They feast on the bones of martyrs. Is this not a call to arms?" Richard felt an icy fist tighten in his chest. He knew the Pope's words contained only partial truth. But the crowd didn't need truth. They needed fire. The square erupted with voices. Women in the front row fell to their knees, wailing. Cries rose up. "Death to the infidels! For Christ! For the Holy Land!" The Pope raised his hand again, and the human storm quieted. "What holds you back? Fear? Are you cowards? Or perhaps love for your homes, your wives, your children? Listen to what the Lord has said. Whoever does not hate his father, mother, brothers, and children for my sake is not worthy of me." Men crossed themselves, teeth clenched. "The land you live on is small and poor. It cannot feed you all. You kill one another for scraps of bread. You raid and plunder your neighbors. But there is a land flowing with milk and honey, a land waiting for its true lords, the land where Christ shed his blood." Urban lifted his hand high, his eyes blazing with unearthly light. "Take it, then, for God wills it." And sweeping the crowd with his gaze, he thundered once more, "God wills it." In Latin it rang out as Deus vult. The crowd exploded in a single roar, "Deus vult! Deus vult!" They chanted in frenzy, trembling in ecstasy, many collapsing to their knees in tears. Richard, too, felt pierced by the wave of exaltation. He bowed his head, hiding his own agitation. "I came to buy a war, but the Pope has sold it even to me," the thought flashed in his mind. Count Raymond was the first to step from the throng. He knelt before the Pope. Urban tore a strip from his mantle, folded it into a cross, and laid it on the Count's shoulder. "May the Lord guard you," he proclaimed. Raymond rose, lifting the cross high like a banner. "Deus vult!" The crowd roared in answer. One by one, knights and squires pressed forward. Crosses cut from the papal mantle fell onto their shoulders. Richard, too, stepped forth. When he stood before the Pope, Urban's gaze lingered on him. For a brief moment, a shadow of understanding passed between them. Urban knew this man had not come for faith. But it did not matter. When Richard lifted the cross, Adhemar inclined his head almost imperceptibly. Everything was proceeding exactly as they had planned. Constantinople. Spring 1096 Emperor Alexios listened to Richard, his fingers drumming lightly on the armrest of the throne. In his eyes there gleamed something more than satisfaction, a cautious triumph. "So, the Pope has given the call," he said when Richard finished. "Crowds of fanatics, thirsting for Turkish blood, now march eastward, and the most powerful lords of Europe are bound by oaths." "Just as we had planned," Richard nodded. "Raymond of Saint-Gilles, Robert of Flanders, Godfrey of Bouillon." "But not Bohemond," Isaac cut in, his grip tightening on the arm of his chair. "No," Richard smirked. "The Pope chose not to summon the Normans." "That will not last," Alexios cast a glance at his brother. "But for now we have time." He rose, signaling that the audience was at an end. "You have served the Empire well, Richard." "I serve you, my lord," Richard bowed. But after leaving the Emperor's presence, Richard did not return to his chambers near the imperial palace. Instead, he took what looked like a casual walk into the city. It soon became clear, however, that this was no idle stroll. He knew exactly where he was going. The narrow lanes of Constantinople, twisting like the tangled lines of a fortune-teller's palm, led him toward the older quarters. He walked quickly, glancing back now and then. Everything was calculated, the timing, the turns, the shadows. After several blocks, he reached the part of the city where Muslims made their homes. In the Muslim quarter, the air was thick with saffron and fear. Richard knocked at a door marked with a sign, 3 scratches like the claws of a devil. An old man, his face seamed with scars, peered out. "He awaits you upstairs," the man said in Persian. Richard gave a slight nod, stepped inside, and began to climb the staircase. The wooden steps groaned beneath him, but he moved carefully, suppressing the sound of his tread. On the second floor, a man stood by a wide window, his form silhouetted against the night. He was dressed in a snow-white jubba, his face obscured by a kufiya. Only his eyes were visible, calm yet as predatory as a hawk's, gazing into the distance. From that height one could see the domes of Constantinople, gleaming in the moonlight like scattered jewels. "Have you put into their hearts what we intended?" he said without turning. Richard bowed his head. "Yes, master,"